Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and very excited to welcome back our next guest. You come to know and love him. He's a professional baseball player, JJ Niekro. Good morning and Merry Christmas, JJ.
Good morning, Keith. Merry Christmas. How are you guys doing today?
Blessed, man. Very blessed. And, it's interesting because a few weeks before Advent had begun, you and I were talking, and you mentioned that you were going to start doing this, or maybe not start, but you were going to share with me, because this was my first time seeing or hearing about this, but kind of like an Advent challenge. Now, before we get into that, I want you to kind of share like what this Advent challenge was for our listeners out there.
Yeah, it's an Advent challenge, but it's also a reminder of the church, the beauty of the church's liturgical seasons, because Advent and Lent are penitential sister seasons. There's a reason when you walk into the church during Advent that it looks purple, it looks bare, it looks different than the rest of ordinary time and our seasons throughout the rest of the liturgical year. So it's a reminder that, yes, something else different is happening within the church. And then if you go read the early church, you could see how much the patristic church fathers were teaching fasting, penance, prayer, especially during this time. We do such a great job leading up to Lent, but we never do that during Advent. So it's something we need to reclaim, because I tell you, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, when you go out, you start having your steak and your candy and your chocolate. It makes it that much better if you fasted from it the entire time. But the Advent challenge, so to say, something our men's group does here in Lakeland, is we go no sugar, no alcohol, no cigars for those of us that enjoy them, no really pleasures. We try to refrain from everything except for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception on the 8th. That's the day you get to break the fast. But if you hold true to that during the Advent season, it makes Christmas, now that the secular world is done celebrating, it makes it so much more beautiful for us. And I was actually at, I don't know if I was at a doctor's appointment or something the other day. I told someone, I was like, oh, Merry Christmas. Christmas is just beginning. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, here's the theological reasons for us going up. They're like, maybe I'll be Catholic too, so they can keep celebrating it as well. I was like, okay, come on. When you get to heaven, you'll become Catholic anyway, so why not start now?
That's right. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, and that I wasn't able to do all of the things that you were mentioning in the men's group there, but I did refrain from sweets, which I've never done during Advent, because kind of like you were saying, aside from the reflections, the Advent reflections that we've always done, never really took it in the penitential way that it's really supposed to be. And so I refrained from sugary things. And as soon as Christmas Day came, I don't know, just knowing why, the why behind the reason it was very much more in my face than, say, if I previously gave up chocolate for Lent. Like, I think it's become so rote in that manner. It just kind of gives a new sense of patiently awaiting Christ's birth. Yeah.
And if you take it to another level as well, which is very tough for even some very mature Catholics and Christians to do, a lot of people in my friend groups won't listen to Christmas music leading up to Christmas, which is super tough because everyone blares it right away. Or when they decorate their house, instead of saying, hey, on the 3rd or 4th of December, we're going to decorate everything, week by week, slowly putting up the preparations to say, okay, this is a time of reveal, a time of leading up. And for my friends with young children, they're like, oh, why is my friend's house all fully decorated and we only have the Christmas tree up, or we only have this up? It's, again, a small reminder, a memento mori, a reminder of our death, a reminder of we're fasting for something so much more greater in the end. And then when Christmas comes, just indulge. We went to Maggiano's last night, a bunch of my friends and I that are Catholic. We just had a ton of food, meatballs, pasta, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, Christmas is here. Thanks be to God. It's so awesome.
Yes. Yeah, and it just based on from my experience too, like it just this already, we're only on the 3rd day of Christmas, and it still feels so joyful because of all the preparation that I did. So it's incredible. I'm curious to know, because you did all of this preparation that you mentioned, is there anything that you learned, and how is it affecting your daily life now that we're into the Christmas season?
I think I've seen a lot of my relationships with friends deepen over Advent. So I wasn't able to do this, but a couple of my friends go so hardcore. The first 3 days of Advent, they actually do a 72-hour fast. They only have bone broth, water, and some electrolytes. And I was in a group chat with them. I was actually in California on retreat, so I couldn't do it. But you could see them encouraging themselves in the group chat, building a brotherly fraternity. And it's funny because one of my friends remarked at daily mass, there's one of our friends, he's newer to our friend group. Instead of during the sign of peace, just kind of saying hello or whatever, he always goes like this, kind of like a strengthening moment. And we're like, oh, that's cool. He does that. But they originally saw him doing that during the fast. It was kind of like this brotherly strengthening during the liturgy, which obviously centers everything else we do together. But I saw a lot of my friendships really, really deepen throughout these days of fasting. Because when you fast with someone, it's like traveling with someone. You're going on an adventure together. You're going on a journey. And when you do travel with someone, especially overseas or far away from your home, instantly there's a connection fostered because it's not something that you would normally do with someone who's in your everyday life. So beautiful friendships really deepen, and then our friendships with the saints really deepen as well. We tried to read the infancy narratives in the Gospels, so the first two chapters of Luke and Matthew, and then the prologue of John as well. And then I had one of my favorite books for Advent, and I still recommend anyone read it during Christmas, is Jesus of Nazareth by Pope Benedict XVI. This is the precursor to the series. It's called actually the infancy narratives. Really short read. I think it's only like 130, 140 pages, but I read it every year during Advent. And Benedict XVI, I think he's a future doctor of the church, definitely a saint, and I think that the church will soon recognize him as one. But really a guy who meets you where you are with Scripture and then calls you higher based on what you know, and it feels like you're reading a friend most of the time. So making friends in heaven, friends on earth, friends in morning joy. What else can you ask for, right?
That's right. And it's really interesting because I know there's a lot of men out there that don't have that kind of community like brotherhood. Is that something that you helped foster, or is that something that was already in place?
So my first few years of college, I was attending the same parish I am now, St. Joseph's in Lakeland. And let's say St. Joseph's at that time, I was 18, 19, 20. When I went to Mass, people would walk up and say, oh, young person, it's so nice to see you here. Like, oh man, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need some Catholic buddies. So I was praying for a lot of fraternity. And by the time my junior or senior year rolled around, we had 3 or 4 guys on the baseball team transferring that were Catholic. We had a couple great, really young, holy and Catholic priests come to our parish. And they were the ones that really brought everyone together, because naturally the priests just meet everyone through different masses and their evangelization and their ministry. But then we had a couple really holy families that were actually in place there. Deacon Jason Bowman and his wife Rachel work for Word on Fire, and they live in Lakeland and work at St. Joseph's. And they are just such a holy family, 6 young kids. So their kids bring their friends. Everyone kind of fosters around them in the community. And they've been a staple at that parish for around 40 years. I think that Deacon Jason has been there his entire life. So naturally it occurs over time, but you do need those great priests, those great deacons, and then you have to share and radiate the joy that God has gifted us with. So for anyone that's kind of struggling finding that fraternity, even if you find 1 or 2, the Lord only started with 12 and one of them wasn't very good. So it doesn't have to be a ton to begin with.
That's right. What advice would you say to someone, maybe they feel like they missed out on Advent this year and they really want to start maybe like anew in the new year? What would you recommend?
Lent is not very fun if you take it seriously. So that's coming up soon. So it's beautiful because we often feel in life, you see everyone struggling with mental health, with spiritual health, going all over the place for the next counselor, the next advisor. The church already gives us a blueprint, a foundation of how we should be living our life. And if we live with the rhythm and the pulse of Mother Church, through praying the Liturgy of the Hours, through reading the Gospel readings, through going to daily Mass, and then acknowledging, oh, we're in this time of Christmas. Now is a time to feast. After the period for Christmas is over, we have Lent coming up soon, obviously. And once you really suffer through a fast of 40 days, you learn something about yourself. And again, I think it's kind of prone to the society we're living in. Everyone wants to be comfortable. Everyone wants that instant gratification. It's really a self-centered culture. But if you step back, and something else I did as well is really get off Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you get off all of those, commit yourself to going to daily Mass, commit yourself to reading something, maybe a church father, maybe a theologian, your life changes. And the one reason people won't do it is because they're scared of it, because they know when they do that, they have to change, and they have to change the way they think. It's not the way JJ thinks. It's the way the church thinks. It's what God is calling me to do, not what I want to do. But people are afraid of change. So I encourage you to be uncomfortable. Our pitching coordinator with the Braves, first day we walked in, he said, you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's a phrase that's really stuck with me because that's what the church and God often asks us to do.
I feel like that's also what Pope Benedict said. Maybe not exactly, something about...
Yep, we're not built for comfort, we're built for greatness.
That's it. Wonderful.
Yeah, he's pretty good too, so we'll listen to him.
He is. So now that we're in the Christmas season, what's your favorite feasting tradition now that your fast is over?
My favorite, Last night was probably my favorite feasting tradition. So it's actually not with my family; it's with a group of my friends. We all play in a fantasy
Uh-huh.
football league. They're all Cuban, Dominican, Puerto Rican. I'm the only true like white guy in there. So I love seeing their Hispanic cultures and the way
Yeah.
just they kind of present food at their house and their family and friends and stuff. But every year we actually rent a limo that drives us from their favorite cigar bar to Maggiano's. We do the all-you-can-eat family feast at Maggiano's. There's like 12 or 13 guys in a limo. It's just a blast. We're just celebrating our brotherhood, and it's always during the Christmas season as well. Just a reminder that we look forward to this because the church is feasting, we're celebrating our brotherhood. And I know for any of those guys, immediately, if something were to go wrong with their family, with my family, I would call them and be there in a heartbeat. So there's
Mm.
this understood relationship that's built on grace, that's built in the Trinity, but we rejoice in it as well because the secular world will tell you doing all that stuff is oh, you're a Catholic, you can't be drinking, you can't be smoking, you can't be feasting. Oh yes, we can feast. The Lord is telling us to do these beautiful things in moderation to glorify Him. And the conversations that come up out of those, the relationships that are built are absolutely amazing.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. Love to hear it. Thank you so much. You're very inspiring, and I know there's a lot of guys out there that are like, okay, Lent, I'm gonna do something different. Let's do it. So there we go. Thanks again, JJ Niekro, for joining us this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you on Morning Joy.
Thank you, Keith. God bless. Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. And yes, Merry Christmas. That's right. And that's a Merry Christmas to you out there as well. We're not going to stop saying it until probably February 2nd. But anyways, that's it for Morning Joy, where truth matters. Now, we recommend, if you're going to be maybe transitioning on over to social media, to find us, you can just do it by searching Morning Joy Radio. We'll be able to do the Morning Joys After Show Clubhouse, where we get to hang out with you and debrief from the show, extend the conversation a little bit more in a relaxed environment. Otherwise, you're probably going to be listening to the Holy Mass coming up next. If that's the case, please pray for us. We'll continue to pray for you during this wonderfully joyful Christmas octave that we're currently in. And remember, just maybe wish somebody a Merry Christmas today, just randomly. You might see, it's always going to be interesting to see the response. You'll have to share it with us in the live chat on Monday morning. That's when we're going to be back, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern. Until then, God bless. Make it a joyful Friday.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.